What is up, guys? This is MaxCo4, and today we're going to be covering Finland's tank army. Now, as you can see, there's really not that many altogether. Now, Germany might have this many just for light tanks, and the same for the Soviets, but Finland, they're kind of using on borrowed and captured equipment. So, as you can see, we're going to have to work a little bit with them. They have mainly Soviet captured equipment, but they also have some German toys in here as well. In addition, they do have a couple of their own variants that they developed themselves throughout the war. So, starting off, right off the rip, the T-20 is actually kind of it's more of an artillery tractor than a tank of its own. So it is kind of cool little vehicle. It only has a armor, as you can see, of 10. It only has a DT machine gun, so it is not the best vehicle, but it is a nice little maneuverable vehicle, and I like getting these, especially in multiplayer, because they only cost, they're very cheap, and they can rush in and be like a little mobile machine gun bunker, which is pretty sick. Talking about machine gun bunkers, we also have the FT-17s. Both of these are, as you can see, super old tanks. These are World War I French tanks, and this one has the just has a Max machine gun. Now this one has the FTs, or has a 37mm cannon. So the max effective range of the DT for all these light tanks or tankettes or artillery tractors is going to be 120 meters, which isn't super far. Now Finland had about 14 of these serviceable at the beginning of the Winter War. Most of them ended up getting dug in after a while because they're slow as molasses. But they did provide some service for them because like a machine gun, a mobile bunker is still pretty cool. It has a hull armor of 16, turret armor of 16 for this, and then 22 for the turret armor and 16 for the hull armor. Just got a little bit thicker turret on this one. So this one I actually like to use a lot. The Maxim shoots pretty fast, and it's very effective. It's just like this T-20, but even better, I think, because it has a rotating turret, and it has a little bit better armor. You can get around, and you can actually do some damage. AT rifles will still destroy its existence, but it is a pretty effective vehicle, and I like to use it quite a bit. Next, we have this one, the actual FT-17, which has a range of 160 actually with this cannon, which is pretty dang far. Now, the bad part is you can't penetrate shit with it. I think you can only get through like 9mm of armor, which is not great for this tank. Only has a one-man turn, so it does take a little bit to reload, and this one does not have a machine gun, which is super annoying. Overall, I just would not recommend using this tank as a whole. The machine gun version is pretty good, but I would not recommend this one. Obviously, these ones are a little dated. T-37 Alpha. The Finnish also did capture some of these. It's a nice little amphibious tank, but it's pretty much the same concept. It's just got actually worse armor. I think it's got 10 for the hull and 8 for the turret. So these are T-37. If you get these in the campaign, you can use them, but I don't recommend it because while it is a little bit quicker than the FTs, it's just doesn't have as much armor, and it's even there's really no point for it. There's no big river crossings in this game that you have to worry about. So I wouldn't even scratch it. The Finnish obviously captured a couple of these when the Soviets rushed over with them, but not the best tank. Next, we have one that's actually pretty good little tank. Now it's a BT-5. Now this has a hull armor of up to 40 and it has a turret armor up to 20. It has a 45mm gun, which is pretty damn good because it has a range of 160, like most of these light tanks, and it has a range of 160 and 34mm penetration, which isn't bad for a light tank. It can do pretty good armor. It has decent armor for itself, and it has 34mm penetration with its armor piercing, high explosive ballistic capped rounds, and it also has a DT machine gun to help it out. Awesome little tank to fight any light vehicles you might be going up against. Now Finland did capture a decent amount of these. They got about 20 of them operational, and these are pretty nice little vehicles if you ask me. Decent armor for a light tank. The BT-7s actually cut down the armor a little bit as they move up. Next we have the Vickers 6-ton Alt B. Now as you can see, this one is pretty wild because it has a Maxim up front, and then it has like a little SMG for the hull gun, which is pretty cool. And then this one has a 37mm. Now this one has 33mm penetration. The Vickers 6-tons, this was their main tank along with the FT-17s. But when they got shipped over from the British back in 1936, they didn't even have guns. So they had to make this is like a revised version of an anti-aircraft gun to fit in there to make it work. They didn't work super great, but I mean, you gotta use what you had. Had hull armor 17.5 and turret armor 13.6, which isn't terrible, but it's not great. Especially anything past early war, it's not gonna be great. Winter war could be used, but obviously, come mid or late war, this thing's not gonna be great. Not great at all. It's a cool little thing. They ended up getting 32 of them. Cool little tank. It become the basis for the T-26. As you can see, T-26. We get T-26B, T-26E here. Now this one has 15 hull armor, 15 turret armor. Now this one has 17.5 and 13.5. So this one, as you can see, shares a little bit more of the characteristics of the original Vickers one, but it's been quite up armored. They both have 45mm guns. Honestly, I like this one because it's got a little bit better armor, and it's got a nice little. It's got the whole gun, but whatever ones you guys like it best is, they both have the same gun, and this one actually they both have 160 range, so that's pretty cool. You can actually get the T-26E in the early war offensive doctrine, which is pretty cool. Now, between all these T-26s, Finland had about 30 of these operational after getting them from all the Soviets, so that's pretty cool. These guys were very, very common. I think in the max strength they had captured like 100 of these bad boys, but they didn't have all of them operational because you guys cannibalize for parts and whatnot, so that's just what you gotta do. Other than the armor, they're pretty much the same. If you guys have any major differences, you let me know. The original one might have a couple more weak parts, but honestly, I like this one because it's got a little SMG, and that's pretty badass in my opinion. That's with the T-26. Another version of T-26, KHT-130. And this is a flamethrower version. It has a DT, which has a range of 120, but it has a flamethrower that has a range of 45. Which is pretty badass because the flamethrower tank is pretty cool. You can get this for cheap manpower in multiplayer, which I do sometimes like to use this. It's like an armor 15-15, but it can do pretty well versus for murdering infantry. I'm not even sure if they really captured any of these, but you know, hey, if they have it, they have it. You can get this in their regular doctrine in early war. Alright, next we have the T-50. T-50 is a badass tank. It's one over in my Soviet videos you guys can check out below. It's got 51 hull armor, 51 turret armor, and it's got sloped armor, so it's pretty effective for a light tank. At the 45mm. Now this thing's gonna have 160 range with 34mm penetration, just like the other 45mm. It does have double dual DTs, which is pretty cool for firepower, so it can be very effective at taking infantry. It doesn't have the whole mounted gun, machine gun, but it does have 2 up there, so it makes it pretty badass. Now, overall, this thing is pretty amazing. You can get it in the late and mid-war all-round doctrines, so that's pretty cool. You can have that. I really like getting this one for my first pick in late war, so because it's a very effective machine. And if I'm not getting this, which they only captured like 1, maybe 2 of these, and they obviously didn't have spare parts, so they couldn't use it for very long. But it is a very unique weapon, and it is a very nice looking tank. Next we have a bit of an anti-aircraft vehicle, the Landsberg L62 Anti-2. So this has a 40mm anti-aircraft gun. It's got an open top, got 3 guys inside the turret. Pretty cool little vehicle. They only had 6 of these bad boys. They actually all made it out of the war. But as you can see, this thing fires extremely fast. It's got armor piercing, and it has high explosives. So it can. This thing is actually very formidable. So its armor is only 10 on the hull and 13 on the turret, I think. Or flip-flop, 13 on the hull and 10 on the turret. So it's very, very weak versus pretty much anything, including anti-tank rifles. But it's got 170 range with its armor piercing, and it can get through 45mm of armor. So this thing's going to be able to get through most all your light tanks, and it can even threaten medium tanks from certain ranges. It's got a very fast reload, and HE infantry will absolutely shred infantry, and the armor piercing can kill pretty much any tanks in this tier. You might come up against a T-50, but if you get into the turret, you can still do some damage. And if you get a side shot, you can really mess up even a T-50, which is pretty much the highest early multiplayer vehicle. These actually shot down some Soviet planes as well. Most all of them made it out of the war. They have a couple of museums now. Just be a note that the HE is 10 meters closer than the armor piercing. So you got 170 for armor piercing, 160 for the high explosive. Nice little vehicle, and I love using this. Let me know in the comments below what you guys like using. If you like using this or T50 better, you can get this one in late and mid or all around as well. Next we have the BT42, another unique finish design. This actually was kind of a failure, if we're being honest. It was built on the BT7, as you can tell probably by the chassis. It's got 20 armor in the hull and 15 on the turret, which isn't great, but it's got a 114mm gun, so it's like they're kind of like their little. It reminds me a lot of the IC-122, but without the armor. So the range is 170 with using the armor piercing bliss. Excuse me, it's 180 using the HE, and it's a 170 using the heat rounds, which have 116mm penetration. Now this bad boy was actually originally supposed to be used against T-34s and heavier tanks, but its heat in real life had some issues, so it was very much not causing the amount of pain that it does in the game. Now the BT42 in the game is like a glass cannon. This thing, if it hits a tank with its 115mm heat round, it's gonna be obliterated. It's pretty much like the Stu, but with less armor and a bigger gun. So I honestly like this thing because it's very good for fire support, but you gotta protect it and keep it behind buildings or keep it protected from infantry and all sorts of stuff. Because anything bigger than anti-tank rifle can kill this bad boy. They actually made 18 of these, and like I said, they're considered a failure. You can get this in all-round mid-war, and you can buy it in multiplayer as well, just for manpower. I think it can be worth it. Obviously, don't want it fighting tanks as much as possible, but it's great for fire support versus infantry. And overall, not a bad vehicle in the game, more of a bad vehicle in real life. So next we're moving up to the T-28. About 5 to 7 of these were captured during the Winter War, and this can be used in the early War Doctrine offensive, which is pretty cool. Now this thing has a range of 180 with this main gun, the 76 one right in the middle. It has 46mm of penetration, which is pretty good for an early war tank. It's not bad. It's got a lot of machine guns around here. As you can see, it's got penetrated machine guns. So this is very good for facing a lot of infantry. Not so great for fighting tanks because it's a huge target for tanks and field guns, and it's got a lot of weak parts. It's got 30 and 30 for the turrets and 30 for the hull. But still, this is a very vulnerable tank. It's a huge tank, huge target, just like the BT42. And you just gotta be careful with it. It's a 180 range. It has to get somewhat close, but you gotta be careful with it at the same time. So I think the call-in you can get from this is actually a double call-in, which is pretty sick. Next we move on to the T-34-76. So between the T-34-76 and 85, they captured about, I think it was like somewhere around 10 units or just below. But they did press these guys back into service as long as they were working before they needed parts. But the T-34-76 model 1941 got 100 hull armor, and it's got 45 turret armor. Excellent tank. This thing is great in the mid-war, and even in the late war, it's still pretty good. Now it has 53mm of penetration, so it's going to struggle with German mediums at range, which range is 190, but it's still a very effective tank, and it's going to be able to fight Panzer IIIs quite effectively. The late war Panzer IIIs will just have to get a little bit on the side shot, but not a bad tank, and it can fight Soviet tanks pretty effectively as well. Alright, next we have one of the probably best well-rounded tanks that they captured, which is the T-34-85. It's got 90 turret armor, it's got 100 hull armor, and this thing's got an 85mm gun. So like I said, they only had like around 10 of the T-34s captured total, and T-34-85s would have been their prized possessions, because this thing has got 96mm penetration at 200 range, with the armor-piercing high explosive ballistic cap. Then the APCR's got 73mm penetration at that same range. But then it has 200 meters also for the range for its HE. So it's a very effective fighting machine, and it's very hard for anybody to take out. Even for the Soviets, going to have some issues taking it out unless they have like an IS-2 or something. Moving on, we get the Stu-40 Golf. So this thing is pretty much just a Stug, but it's been up armored a little bit. As you can see, the armor is a little bit different. It has 80 armor, and then they've up armored it with tracks, logs, and some bolted on extra armor, looks like. As you can see, they got a little DT machine gun up top to help do even more protection for it. Now this thing is pretty much nice because it's got a range of 200, 98 millimeters penetration, armor piercing ballistic cap, and then APCR with 111. The same range. I got one of these bad boys though, so you gotta use it sparingly. It has to be at 170 meters away to use it, but it has 88 millimeters penetration at pretty much all ranges closer than that. Then HE's got a range of 180 for that. So then you also get a machine gun up there, which can be good for keeping back infantry that are in front of you. Overall, this was one of the most effective fighting vehicles. They got about just under 60 of these. I think there's like 59 in 2 deliveries. But this vehicle really beefed up their anti-armor, and they killed plenty of Soviet tanks with this thing. They're very good, especially for the defensive tactics they were using when they were fighting the Soviets in 1944. During the continuation war, the Soviets invaded again. This thing was a huge tool. I like using this thing. It's pretty awesome. You can get this in the all-round at mid-war, and I think you can buy it as well in the late war. Next we have the Panzer IV-J, one of the last versions of the Panzer IV. Now this bad boy's got 80 armor, and it's got 50 on the turret, so it's pretty cool. You get it from the Lend-Lease doctrine in the late war. Now it has the long barrel 75. It's got the exact same stats. It's got 98 millimeters at 200 range and 111 with APCR. I think it carries a little bit more APCR though. Yeah, it's got 2. It's not got a lot, but it does carry more. Same thing for the heat. It's got 88 millimeters penetration at 170 meters, and the HE is 180. Now the Panzer IVs, they only had about 15 of these bad boys, but as you can see, Panzer IV is a Panzer IV. This thing's going to be excellent. It's going to be outgunning pretty much anything. Anything earlier than the T-34-85. T-34-76 is going to get outgunned by this, and even KV-1s are going to get outranged by it at least. Not a bad tank, and the Finns definitely made great usage of it. Alright, so now we're going to move into the Soviet heavy tanks. So they had some heavy tanks, which were pretty much just KV-1s. So they had the KV-1E, KV-1 1942, and the JSU 152. So the KV-1 Echo has a whole armor of 100, turret armor of 105, and the extra armor, as you can see, some slabs got put on here for 25. So it has a lot of good armor. It has a 76 millimeter gun, and it has 190 meters range. You can get through 50 meters of armor. So this thing is pretty effective. I've taken out anything that's mid-war or later, mid-war or earlier, excuse me. You can get it from the regular doctrines. Nice little KV-1. It's got extremely good armor. Now this next one is a KV-1 1942. It's got a better gun, but it actually has a little bit worse armor. Actually, I stand correct. Whole armor is 105. Turret armor is 105. And it's got extra armor bolted on again, as you can see. Now this one has penetration, only goes out to 190 just like the other one, but it's got up to 60 millimeters of penetration with the armor piercing high explosive ballistic cap. Both of these bad boys also have high explosive, so very effective weapon. This is in the all-round late war doctrine, so you can get KV-1 and 2 doctrines, and this is the better one, the model 1942. This is going to be able to take out pretty much, you start to compete with Panzer IVs. Panzer IVs usually aren't going to be able to kill it unless they can detrack and call on a plane, but it's a very effective fighting vehicle. Anything smaller than a Panzer IV, any Panzer III is going to get obliterated by this thing. Next, moving on, and they only captured, I believe, one or two of these guys, and they did press them into combat as long as they could. But like you said, same thing for the other ones. Parts are the biggest issue. All right, next we have the JSU 152, which is just renamed to ISU 152. Same thing. It's got 90 armor. I'm not sure if they have any bolted on armor here. I don't see anything extra, but it's the ISU 152. Carries 14 rounds, and it's a beast. This thing is a nuke wagon, as I like to call it. It has 200 meters range and has 125 penetration with its armor piercing high explosive ballistic capped round, which is pretty dang good. 125 millimeters, but its HE also does huge concussion effects, and it actually I definitely killed elephants with the Soviet version of this. So this is pretty effective little bad boy. They had 2 of these that they pressed into service. So of all these things, they only had a little bit of them, but still pressing this thing into service is going to be a game changer. Because this thing, I'm pretty sure I used this thing in one of my matches earlier to kill a Super Persian. So it can be highly effective. Obviously, they don't have a lot of tanks to work with, but you got to work with what you got. They got unique stuff like this little Glamberg here that can be very effective, and reloads pretty fast, so it can take out pretty much all the early war tanks. As you can see, it's not going to penetrate that at least right here. But if you guys enjoyed this nice little tank guide, I hope you guys enjoyed it for Finland. Expect the infantry guide coming soon. Leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more, and post what you want to see in the future. And goodbye.